There's a way to pull electricity directly out of the dirt. No solar panels, no wind turbines, no chemical batteries. Just a pot, a plant, and a wire. If you plug an LED into this soil, it lights up, and it stays lit forever. It works at night, it works indoors, it works when the grid goes down. The energy industry tells you this is impossible. They tell you that power must be generated by burning something or splitting an atom. But biology disagrees. This is the story of the living battery. And the reason you're paying a monthly electric bill instead of harvesting voltage from your houseplants is because a grid that grows itself cannot be controlled. Number one, the photosynthetic leak. To understand the magnitude of what has been hidden from you, we first have to deconstruct the inefficiency of the natural world. We are taught in school that plants are perfect machines, efficiently converting sunlight into energy. This is a lie. From an engineering perspective, plants are incredibly leaky. When sunlight hits a leaf, the process of photosynthesis kicks in. The plant takes carbon dioxide and water and uses the sun's energy to forge them into glucose, sugar. This is the fuel of life. But plants produce far more fuel than they can actually consume. They are overproductive. Biological studies from the University of Wageningen in the Netherlands have confirmed that plants exude up to 70% of this sugar out through their roots and into the surrounding soil. It is a massive biological waste stream. Or rather, it seems like waste. In reality, it is a bribe. The plant pumps this sugar into the rhizosphere, the root zone, to attract bacteria. It is farming microbes. The bacteria eat the sugar and, in exchange, they break down minerals in the soil, making them available for the plant to absorb. It is a symbiotic economy happening microscopically under your feet. But here is the forensic physics that the energy industry ignores. When bacteria break down glucose, they release protons and electrons. It is a chemical reaction. In a normal pot of dirt, these electrons are immediately absorbed by oxygen or other compounds in the soil. The energy is lost as low-grade heat. It dissipates into the ground, wasted forever. This waste is actually raw potential energy. We have been walking on trillions of volts of wasted energy for centuries. Every lawn, every forest, every garden is leaking power. We paved over it to build power plants. The plant microbial fuel cell hacks this process. It interrupts the feast. By harnessing this leak, we tap into the fundamental metabolic rate of the planet itself. It turns the plant from a passive object into an active generator. Number two, the bacterial circuit. The mechanism of harvesting this energy is not magic. It is electrochemistry. The plant microbial fuel cell works by creating an artificial separation in the soil. In nature, electrons released by bacteria find oxygen instantly. To generate power, you must force those electrons to travel a different path. You must force them to travel through a wire. This is achieved by creating two distinct zones in the soil. An anaerobic zone, no oxygen, at the bottom, and an aerobic zone, oxygen-rich, at the top. By placing an anode, a negative electrode, deep in the soil where there is no oxygen, you create a trap. The bacteria, specifically groups like Geobacter, eat the plant sugars. They look for oxygen to dump their electrons, but there is none. So they look for the next best conductive surface. They find the anode. They physically wire themselves to it using conductive pili, microscopic nanowires that grow out of their bodies. They dump their electrons onto the anode. These electrons are now trapped in the conductive material. They want to get to the oxygen at the surface, but they cannot go through the soil. The only path available is the wire you have connected to the anode. They rush up the wire, pass through your LED light, powering it along the way, and arrive at the cathode, the positive electrode, sitting on top of the soil. There they finally meet the oxygen and complete the reaction, producing pure water. This flow of electrons from the deep soil to the surface is electricity. It is not theoretical. It is measurable, usable DC current, generated by the plant's metabolism. It is the same electricity that comes out of your wall socket, but it is generated by the digestion of a living thing. The bacteria are the engine, the plant is the fuel pump, the sun is the source. It is a biological solar panel that works by digesting the sun's energy rather than just capturing it. Number three, the material conspiracy. The reason most backyard experiments fail is that people use the wrong components. You cannot just stick 2 copper nails in a potato. That is a chemical battery that eats itself. The copper corrodes, the reaction stops, and the plant dies from metal toxicity. A plant microbial fuel cell is biological. It needs to last for years. It requires specific inert materials that the average consumer does not have access to, because the hardware store doesn't stock them. The researchers at Wageningen discovered the material that makes this permanent, carbon felt. This is a material usually used in welding blankets or high-temperature insulation. It is conductive, non-corrosive, and biologically inert. But most importantly, it has a massive surface area. A single square inch provides acres of microscopic space for bacteria to colonize. When you bury carbon felt in the soil, the bacteria move in. They coat the fibers. They wire themselves directly to the carbon. It becomes a biofilm. This biofilm is the engine. Once established, it doesn't corrode, it doesn't wear out. As long as the plant pumps sugar, the bacteria pump electrons. The energy industry relies on batteries made of lithium and cobalt, rare earth minerals that must be mined, refined, and eventually die. The plant fuel cell uses carbon in biology. It is a battery that gets stronger with age. Then there is the wire. You cannot use copper. You need titanium wire. Copper will corrode and poison the plant. Silver will tarnish. Titanium is inert. It conducts the power without killing the biology. But try finding titanium wire at your local electrical supply store. You won't. It is an industrial specialty product. The supply chain gap acts as a barrier to entry. It keeps the technology out of the hands of the average tinkerer. By controlling the materials, the industry controls the application. They know that if people try with copper and fail, they will dismiss the technology as a hoax. Access to the right materials is the difference between a science experiment and a revolution. Number 4, the species specifics. Not all plants are electricians. If you try this with a cactus or a succulent, you will fail. They grow too slowly. They don't pump enough sugar. The plant's physiology dictates the power plant's output. You need a wetland plant, one that evolved to live in waterlogged soil where oxygen is scarce. This biological key unlocks the voltage. Researchers found Spartina grass most powerful in salt marshes. For home growers, the best options are spathiphyllum, the peace lily, or cypress, the umbrella papyrus. These plants are hydraulic pumps, moving massive water and sugar. Their aggressive root systems quickly colonize carbon felt. Crucially, they thrive in anaerobic conditions. For the fuel cell to work, the pot's bottom must be oxygen-free. If oxygen reaches the bottom electrode, electrons jump to it instead of the wire, stopping power. Most plants would rot and die. But wetland plants evolved specialized tissue called parenchyma. This tissue acts like a snorkel, pumping oxygen from leaves to roots, keeping them alive in anaerobic soil. This natural mechanism drives voltage potential. It creates separation between oxygen-rich root interior and oxygen-poor soil. You aren't just growing a plant, you are managing a complex hydrological engine. The choice of plant is critical. The industry doesn't educate you on botany's electrical properties. They categorize plants by look, not capability. By selecting the right species, you are selecting the right generator for your biological power plant. Number 5, the 24-hour cycle. Solar panels have a fatal flaw. They stop working when the sun goes down. To run a house on solar, you need expensive batteries to store power for the night. This storage problem is the bottleneck of the green energy revolution. It keeps us dependent on the grid. The plant microbial fuel cell does not have this problem. It works in the dark. In fact, some studies show it works better at night. How is this possible if photosynthesis needs sun? Because the plant stores starch. During the day, it makes sugar and stores it in its tissues. At night, it breaks down that stored starch and continues to exude sugar into the soil to feed its bacterial partners. The bacteria do not sleep. They continue to eat and release electrons 24 hours a day. It is a baseload power source. It provides a steady, flat line of power. This stability is incredibly valuable. If you have a system that generates power 24/7, you don't need a Tesla Powerwall. You don't need lead-acid batteries. The soil is the storage. This challenges the entire battery industry, built on the premise that renewable energy is intermittent. Grid operators say we need coal and nuclear for reliability. They say renewables are too fickle. The plant battery proves nature has already solved the storage problem. The plant is the capacitor, the soil is the battery. By integrating energy generation with biological storage, we eliminate the need for mining lithium. We eliminate the need for massive toxic battery banks. We create a power source that mirrors the stability of the forest itself, pulsing with a rhythm that never stops, day or night, winter or summer. Number 6, the military interest. Whenever a technology is labeled impossible or inefficient by mainstream media, check if the military is using it. In the 2000s, the US Army funded classified research into jungle batteries. They faced a logistical nightmare in modern warfare: batteries. Sensors, listening devices, and cameras dropped into the jungle need power. Sending soldiers to change batteries is dangerous and expensive. They needed a power source that could last for years without maintenance. They realized the jungle floor itself was a battery. By dropping sensors with microbial fuel cell spikes into the mud, they tapped into the forest's natural decomposition. The sensors would listen for enemy movement, powered by rotting leaves and living roots. The technology worked. It proved that low-voltage, high-endurance biological power was viable. But like many military technologies, it didn't transfer to the civilian market. It wasn't packaged for the home, it was filed away. A battery you never have to replace is bad for the economy. The consumer market depends on consumables. Duracell and Energizer rely on you coming back. The military relies on the mission. Once the mission was surveillance, the technology was developed. But the civilian mission is consumption, so the technology was suppressed. We use batteries from 19th century design principles, while the military mapped the electrical potential of the Earth itself. They know the grid is vulnerable. They know the ultimate backup power is biology. Number 7, the voltage stacking. Critics, usually from the fossil fuel lobby, will argue that the voltage is too low. A single pot generates about 0.5 to 0.7 volts. You cannot run a refrigerator on it. And they are right. You can't run a fridge on a fern. But this argument is a distraction. It is a straw man designed to make you dismiss the technology. The revolution isn't about powering heavy appliances. It is about powering the Internet of Things. It is about lighting. It is about stacking. Batteries are stacked in series to increase voltage. Plant pots can be stacked the same way. If you connect 10 pots in a series, you have 5 to 7 volts. That is enough to charge a phone. That is enough to power a bank of LED lights. That is enough to run a microcontroller. Researchers in the Netherlands proved this by lighting up a roadside sign using the grass next to it. The grass was already there. The land was already there. By simply burying the mesh, they turned the landscaping into a power plant. Scale this up. A green roof on a skyscraper has thousands of square feet of soil. A rice paddy has millions. If these were underlaid with carbon mesh, they could generate megawatts of power without burning fossil fuel. It transforms agriculture into energy production without losing the crop. It allows a farmer to harvest rice and electricity from the same field at the same time. The argument against voltage is an argument against scale. Alone, a plant is weak. Together, a field is a power station. Number 8, the carbon negative truth. We are told that we need net zero technology. We are told we need to stop adding carbon to the air. The energy sector is obsessed with reducing emissions. The plant microbial fuel cell is not net zero, it is carbon negative. As the plant grows, it pulls CO2 out of the air to build its body. The bacteria in the soil sequester some of that carbon. The generation of electricity does not release pollution. It produces pure water and a tiny amount of CO2 that is immediately reabsorbed by the plant above. It is a machine that cleans the atmosphere while powering the lights. The plant battery is biological. It grows, it reproduces, it composts when it breaks. It is the only form of energy generation that is truly aligned with the laws of nature. And that is why it is not being subsidized. There is no lobby for a technology that heals the planet for free. There are no contracts for mining companies. There are no pipelines. The carbon negative nature of this technology makes it the enemy of an economy based on carbon throughput. Number 9, the DIY construction. You can build this. You don't need a lab. You need a bucket. But you must follow the protocol exactly to create the anaerobic conditions required. Here is the build. Preparation. Drill a hole near the bottom of a plastic bucket for the wire. Seal it tight later. The anode. Lay down a piece of carbon felt. Weave your titanium wire through it. This goes at the very bottom. The matrix. Fill the bucket halfway with wet, muddy soil mixed with a little compost. Pack it down to remove air bubbles. This is the anaerobic zone. The separator. Add a layer of sand or peat moss. This prevents oxygen from traveling down. The cathode. Lay down a second piece of carbon felt. Connect a second titanium wire to it. This sits in the upper layer. The plant. Fill the rest with soil and plant your peace lily or wetland grass. Water. Keep it wet. It must stay wet to conduct the ions. At first you will get 0 volts. The bacteria need time. They need to colonize the felt. They need to build the biofilm. It takes about 2 weeks of incubation. Then the multimeter jumps. It starts small. But once the biofilm is established, you have a permanent generator. Connect the bottom wire, negative, and top wire, positive, to an LED. It will glow. It is the ghost in the machine. When you look at a potted plant, you're looking at a machine that has been perfected over 1 billion years. It is a solar collector, a water pump, a carbon scrubber, and a power plant. We have treated plants as decorations. We have treated them as food. But we have rarely treated them as partners in technology. The microbial fuel cell proves that the answers to our energy crisis are not found in nuclear fusion or more coal. They are found in the mud. The industry wants you to believe that energy is scarce. They want you to believe it is hard to generate. They want you to believe that you need them. But the LED glowing in the pot proves them wrong. The materials are available. The science is public. The plants are waiting. You can build a battery that heals the earth. You can light your home with the life force of your garden. You can opt out of the grid, one pot at a time. Do not let them keep you in the dark about what grows in the dark. If this video opened your eyes, subscribe and hit the bell. The algorithm favors the products they sell. We favor the truths they hide. Every like and share preserves what they tried to erase. The next vault opens soon.